Welcome to the Sdrr portion of the February DAC trainings. I'm Pam Powers in the Office of Assessment and Accountability, or OAA. Chris Williams and I put together this presentation to help you understand the Student Data Review and Rosters application, better known as Sdrr. Every year, we have a few changes to Sdrr based on your feedback and on changes in assessments and to the accountability system. There are a few changes this year, but most things have remained the same. If you have used Sdrr in previous years, it will feel like an old friend has returned. So what is new this year? For those that have used the Extraordinary Circumstance form in the past, you will need to be aware that the U.S. Department of Education says that this form can no longer be used. Most of the entries made on the Extraordinary Circumstance form will be able to move to the Medical Non-Participation form. The Medical Non-Participation form has been updated to include a signature from the superintendent or designee in place of a doctor's signature. More on these forms in a moment. Once upon a time, there was a separate roster for the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey. Not anymore. If a student participates in the K-Prep or alternate K-Prep, it is assumed that the student will take the survey, just like they take the other content area test. That gives us one last roster to track this year. The last entry on our change list is a name change, from transition readiness to post-secondary readiness. Another change for this year, though on Infinite Campus, is the use of blended learning groups to track or determine which students are virtual or in non-traditional, those not in the school building, and which students are in the building or in person. OAA will use the blended learning groups this summer to determine if a student should have been assessed or not. Please work with your Director of Pupil Personnel, or DPP, to make certain this is getting completed in your schools. If blended learning groups are new to you, they are not new to your Director of Pupil Personnel, or DPP. They began the process of setting up blended learning groups in the fall of 2020 to track participation. A BLG, or blended learning group, is assigned to a calendar day by the attendance clerk in the school to record which students are remote that day. Local staff decides the names of the groups, so your names may differ from what you see in our handout and slides. We are not going to repeat those trainings on how to set up a blended learning group, but the Office of Financial Operations has created a handout for DACs to help you create an ad hoc report and set up the groups. This is entitled the DAC BLG Setup Handout in the February DAC Meetings folder. Let's take a quick look at an ad hoc report that you can create in Infinite Campus to see which students and groups are assigned on a particular day. Please use the DAC BLG Setup handout for additional information. For assistance with creating or running an ad hoc report in IC, please reach out to your DPP or your CASES point of contact. They will be able to assist with your understanding of the process. Step 1 is to go to the System Administration Calendar, then Days tab. Choose the day of the calendar you want to see. The students in the blended learning groups that will be remote on this day are listed under the blended learning groups. Look at the bottom of the screenshot on this slide. Our example shows that on December 18th, there are 3 groups that are filled with remote learning students. The groups are all virtual, 100% remote, and Group A, Monday, Tuesday. Remember, the group names are decided locally and for the meaning of why certain students are in one group and not another, please speak with your DPP. The second step is to choose the fields listed on the screen and run the report. For assistance with creating or running an ad hoc report in IC, please reach out to your DPP or your case's point of contact. Your DPP and attendance clerks participated in several training sessions in the fall of 2020. The helpful links will connect you to the various trainings. Your best source of information is your DPP. You can also reach out to the KDE Division of District Support in the Office of Financial Operations for support at 502-564-3930. Please contact either Josh Whitlow via email at josh.whitlow@education.ky.gov or use his extension of 4450, or you may contact Jessie Carlton via email at jessica.carlton@education.ky.gov or use her extension at 2468. Let's get back to what's changed in SDRR. Following the 2020 KDE audit by the U.S. Department of Education, they found an issue with the use of the extraordinary circumstances non-participation and required that it be removed. The action required that KDE will allow student exemptions from administrations of such assessments only for significant medical emergencies and not for extraordinary circumstances, which is consistent with ESEA Section 1111 B2B7. What this means in practical terms is that the medical non-participation form will now include all of the physical, mental, emotional, and social issues that could necessitate a student being unable to participate in a state assessment. What about cases such as runaways or a student kidnapped by the non-custodial parent? Please keep track of those, and we will have a way for you to share this information during data review in late summer or early fall. The medical non-participation will now see further use as some of the extraordinary circumstances reasons come over to it. The form will now include all of the physical, mental, emotional, and social issues that could necessitate a student being unable to participate in a state assessment. Please enter the information into SDRR and wait for an approval, denial, or a request for additional information. You will continue to keep a copy of this form on file in your district. But be certain that once you've entered one into SDRR, that you check to make certain that we're not requesting additional information. When the rosters close, any open tickets that have not been taken care of will be denied. What did change with the medical non-participation form is that the superintendent or designee signature will be accepted in place of a doctor's signature. The designee could be the District Assessment Coordinator or DAC if chosen by the superintendent. This is completely a local decision. We've been talking about what's new or changed, but let's look at our schedule of events for this spring. I'll give you a moment to absorb this timeline that runs from March 1st and on past April. Notice that we begin with the access and alternate access rosters on March 1st. They will close on April 13th. During this time, there are no preloaded students in the roster. The ACT roster also has no students preloaded and will open on March 10th and close on April 30th. These rosters are for the entry of non-participations, such as medical, absent on testing day, first year EL, etc. Each assessment roster may vary in the list of non-participations which are allowed. When we look above the timeline, we see the district test window collection box running from March 15th through March 31st. It's time to tell us when your last 14 instructional days will be. Remember, we check this against campus, so get into IC and make certain it's up to date. Notice that our spring rosters don't appear on our timeline until April 20th. This gives us a few days to close the access rosters, populate them with students, and reopen them with the rest of the rosters. The spring rosters are K-Prep, alternate K-Prep, access, alternate access, and post-secondary readiness. The schedules for different activities in Sdrr will overlap. The announcements section in Sdrr that appears upon login to the system will display reminders of when parts are opening and closing. We've seen the changes in Sdrr and rosters, but what has remained the same from previous years? Well, almost everything. There is a Sandbox area for staff training that opens a week or so ahead of each roster. The big red I Need Help button is there, containing tutorials for accountability, dropouts, etc., and information on how to do the processes in Sdrr. Rosters will be open and accepting tickets on the tentative schedule we saw a few minutes ago. The rosters are once again connected to Infinite Campus for this phase. And data review will continue to start in late summer or early fall. The work continues in Sdrr with the two phases, rosters and data review. Let's look at the spring rosters that you will be changing. Alternate K-Prep, K-Prep, access, and alternate access for ELs. Post-secondary readiness. We'll also have TED's career data. If you have questions concerning your CTE or data or the information in TED's, please contact the Office of Career and Technical Education. Claude Christian or Scott Uselis will be able to assist you. The cohort or graduation rate data will be visible during the spring, but its review closed earlier this year, so you won't be able to change it. The School Climate and Safety Survey no longer has a separate roster this spring, since all students participating in the K-Prep or alternate K-Prep assessment are expected to take the survey before they begin the rest of the area content tests. The other change from previous years was a name change from transition readiness to post-secondary readiness. Let's look at data review. It will have the same rosters open this fall, but they will no longer be directly connected to Infinite Campus. This is the time when you can fix things that slip by during rosters. The cohort or graduation rate is for review only, with changes made in IC. The Sdrr Training Sandbox URL is shown on this slide and uses the same login credentials as the live site. It's oaa-adc.education.ky.gov. You may choose to use the sandbox to train staff in your district and schools. It will open approximately 2 weeks prior to the opening of each roster. For example, spring rosters open April 20th. We would expect the sandbox to be open by April the 9th. Our features in Sdrr continue from previous years. Rosters are connected to IC for demographics. When you log into Sdrr, there are large buttons on the home page denoting what is open. The home page continues to house announcements, student listings, ticket listings, transfer listings, and a task list for each roster. When the 100-day student changes are requested, you will see in progress on the student listing until the change is approved or denied. The same process also applies to non-participation change requests. Another thing to be aware of on these types of requests is that it could be that it's not just an approval or denial, but a request for additional information. Please check your tickets to make certain that you know what state they're in and if we're waiting on additional information from you. You can still edit your tickets. Even though the edit ticket shows locked, the district can still make edits by clicking on the edit button. The big red I Need Help button remains on the screen to help answer your most common questions regarding features and the system in general, and to walk you through the process of such things as determining if a student is 100 days and who should be accountable for this student. If you haven't done anything in Sdrr for 20 minutes, it will log you out for inactivity. 20 minutes goes by extremely quickly, so it helps to have all of your information gathered before you begin. I think we've all been in the boat where it logs us out. We didn't realize it had been 20 minutes, but it really had. We like to remind you to keep a copy of each roster as you finish them this spring. You can export the roster into an Excel, a PDF, or CSV file, or a comma-separated values file. You will want a copy to refer to when you get to data review. The annotations are on the rosters if your schools chose to use them, and usually contain valuable information. When you export, you will also get the 6-digit district and school codes, which is helpful for those students who had 100 days in another school or district. Some of the other features you can use are the filters to narrow the student listing, and you can control how many students are displayed on a page as well. And the Sandbox. It allows you to train staff without worrying about changing your student information. The login credentials for both Sdrr and the Sandbox remain the same. This gives you one less password to remember, which is a great thing. Data quality. It starts with the rosters in the spring. Rosters are connected to Infinite Campus or IC. If the data is incorrect in IC for things like the SSID number, the student name, enrollment information, and so on, then your roster will be incorrect. Please get IC correct now. This also applies to the blended learning groups. We will be using the information put in for each day to determine if a student was in person or not. If the student was in person, we will expect the student to be assessed. One student can make a difference. Let's look closer at the spring Sdrr activities. We are collecting the 100-day students as of the first day of your 14-day test window. As of the time of this recording, the U.S. Department of Education has not waived accountability or assessments for 2021. Kentucky will apply for a waiver if it is offered. To help you determine who is a 100-day student, we have developed the 100-day tool. This is available under the I Need Help button or from the 100-day tool link at the top of this page. The short URL displayed in the 100-day quiz button will take you directly to the quiz. It is an anonymous accountability quiz you can use to test your knowledge and to challenge or train staff members. We mentioned collecting the district test windows earlier, but we're going into more detail here. We will again collect your K-Prep test windows for each level, elementary, middle, and high school. The District Assessment Coordinator, or DAC, is the person entering this information into Sdrr. All school-level users will be able to view this information. The window opens on March 15th. Please make certain that your school calendars are up to date in Infinite Campus a week prior to the K-Prep test window deadline, which is closing on March 31st. DACs can change district test windows, but others, such as BACs, can only see the information. Enter the dates that each grade level, elementary, middle, and high, will begin testing. If the test windows are incorrect or the last 14-day date is incorrect, please contact your DAC. The 14-day date for the district earliest start dates is pulled from Infinite Campus weekly. This means that there will be one refresh of the calendar information from campus while the district test windows are open in Sdrr. It is recommended that you export the district test windows to Excel or PDF for your use. This will export all of the test windows in Kentucky. Please note that the 2020-2021 data entry screen will differ from the one which is displayed. Sdrr is currently being updated, and a screenshot of the new system was not available at the time of this recording. This slide shows the URL for Sdrr in case you do not have it. It's oaa-adc.education.ky.gov. Another place you can find helpful links is in the Monday DAC email. On the right-hand side, in the gray bar area, you will find links for applications like Sdrr, the Secure Web Application, and Pearson Access Next, or PAN. The @KDE links shows the school report card and other KDE pages. And finally, you'll find the helpful links section to things like the administration code training signups. Okay, that's enough of an aside. Let's get back to our rosters. On April 20th, you'll see the spring rosters open in Sdrr, which are fully populated with all of the students. Unlike the Access and ACT rosters that were open in March with no students. Those rosters were to allow you to add non-participations by adding a student as necessary. When the Access and Alternate Access rosters reopen in the spring rosters, all students meeting the English learner criteria will appear in the rosters. This information is merged with the non-participations you added earlier. But let's concentrate on the K-Prep rosters for a moment. On the K-Prep rosters, you will verify the student enrollment in grades 3 through 8, 10, and 11. If an alternate assessment student is on the K-Prep roster, the student should be removed from the K-Prep roster and added to the alternate K-Prep roster. Alternate assessment students should be designated in IC as alternate assessment. You can find details on how to add and/or remove students by going to the I Need Help button, our favorite big red button. Also, if a student is not enrolled in your school, you will be able to remove the student from your roster. You will create change requests or tickets for non-participations, or to change the 100-day accountability for a student to another school, district, or even the state. Some of the non-participations available are first-year EL. Though a first-year EL student must show participation for math and science, please see the K-Prep training for that. Medical non-participation. Remember, you'll create and fill out that form, and you'll need to enter the entire form into Sdrr and wait for approval or denial or a request for additional information, which can be a fairly common thing sometimes. So check your tickets, especially if you've entered a medical non-participation. We may be requesting additional information from you. Another ticket type is the student withdrew after the testing window began. This could be that the student withdrew to another Kentucky school, a private school, a home school, another state, and so on. The last listed non-participation is the expelled without services. Please make certain that the correct withdrawal code is on this non-participation. Changing student accountability to another school or district or the state is quite doable. OAA will use the enrollment information in IC, yes, we're using your calendars again, to help us determine if the 100-day change request is valid. Students for whom a non-participation has been requested should be included on your roster. Please don't remove them. You would only remove a student who is not enrolled on the first day of your test window and who is not testing with you. If this gets confusing, there's more information in the Test Administration Manual or TAM, or feel free to contact us. We'll be glad to walk you through it. There is a portion of the roster that OAA does not use. That is the annotation area. This area is an optional place for you to add information about a student. Some choose to annotate the roster for students who move during the testing window, so that you have dates and days enrolled in each school. Others choose to use the annotation to remember that this student was provided accommodations, especially if there was a problem during rosters in this area, but more on that in a moment. This brings us to saving an electronic copy of each roster before the window closes. Remember, this captures any annotations added by the school for each student. Please download or export each roster and each grade. During the spring, rosters are connected directly to IC, meaning we will use the demographic information as of the first day of your your last 14 instructional days. Please make certain that your calendars are up to date in campus before your window closes. Also, we will use the start and end dates in campus to verify the change to lunch status, EL, and IEP students. Those fields will be based as of the 14-day testing window on the district calendar and not the end of the school year. How the student was classified as the beginning of your window and not how they ended or started the school year. That's the one that we will use. That's the status. There are several IC resources available in the I Need Help button. If you do not have access to the reference reports or do not know how to use them, please contact your local CASES point of contact or DPP. We will add, update, or remove resources under I Need Help as they change. Most information during rostering is changed in IC rather than Sdrr. That includes student name, SSID numbers, date of birth, gender, race, ethnicity, EL status, grade, and lunch status. If information has been updated in campus, except for the IEP, it is not reflected in SDR, and it's not reflected in SDR by the next day. It's not an immediate refresh. It has to go overnight. Please contact the Enterprise Data Cases team at KDE Data Request education.ky.gov, and they will be able to assist you. When you contact them, they'll go ahead and send them the SSID number and what the issue is. That way they will know what to go look for. Iep questions may be directed to Amy Patterson in the Office of Special Education and Early Learning. Speaking of IEP questions, let me give you what helpful hints I can. Number 1, verify the student has a current IEP and is using the appropriate assessment accommodations. Complete the IEP field appropriately. Your Director of Special Ed or DOS should be able to help. And thirdly, verify that the IEP is locked and current. After that, we'll need to direct you to your DOS or to Amy Patterson. If you made a change to the IEP and do not see it reflected in SDRR the following day, please go ahead and contact Amy Patterson in the Office of Special Education and Learning by phone at 502-564-4970 or by email at amy.patterson@education.ky.gov. These are our helpful hints to make certain that a student appears as an English learner, or EL, in SDRR. Make certain that the correct EL field is completed in IC. So, mark the student as EL. The home language should be other than English. Mark at least one instructional accommodation. And mark at least one program services type. Now, if the parents decline services, mark this as SEI, Sheltered English Immersion, for the program services type. If information that has been updated in IC, except for the IEP, is not reflected in SDRR the following day, please go ahead and email the Enterprise Data Cases team at KDE Data Request at education.ky.gov and provide them detailed information. Include that SSID number and the issue, and they'll be able to assist you. To wrap up with one last look at when rosters are opening and closing this spring, it's important that everyone gets the rosters right. The annotations area on each roster are for district use only and completely optional. The access, alternate access, and ACT rosters are not pre-populated with student names. You will add a student as needed and enter the medical, non-participation, or other non-participation reason for these assessments. Some of the non-participations are available are medical, absent on testing day, first year EL, etc. Each assessment roster may vary in the list of non-participations. Once the access rosters are closed and reopened for spring rostering, they will contain student names pulled from Infinite Campus and include any entered non-participation information. The district test window collection runs from March 15th through March 31st. This is when you tell us when your test windows will be. Remember, We check this against campus, so get into IC and make certain the calendar is up to date. There will be one refresh of data from IC into SDRR for the district test window. Please update your IC calendars a week in advance of the window to have the most accurate information when that window opens. And if it is incorrect, that gives you time to get it changed. And then 1 week into that window, we get a refresh and you can make certain that everything is correct. Our spring rosters open on April the 20th. The spring rosters are K-Prep, alternate K-Prep, access, alternate access, and post-secondary readiness. These rosters are all pre-populated with students. The Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey is administered as part of the K-Prep assessment and will not have a separate roster this year. It is assumed that the student will take the survey before he or she begins the K-Prep or the alternate K-Prep. Post-secondary readiness will show students marked as grade 12 or graduated during this school year in campus. This is the time to make certain all of your potential graduates are included. Questions concerning career or TEDS data may be directed to Claude Christian or Scott Uselis in the Office of Career and Technical Education. This concludes the SDRR portion of the February DAC trainings. Please review the other trainings such as K-Prep, alternate assessment, and high school to be better prepared for the upcoming spring testing. There will be live question and answer sessions with the Division of Assessment and Accountability support following the release of these recordings. Please check your DAC Monday email for the relevant dates and times for the Q&A sessions. If you have questions concerning SDRR or anything around state testing, please do not hesitate to call or email us at 502-564-4394 or email dacinfo@education.ky.gov. On behalf of Chris Williams and myself, Pam Powers, we thank you for listening.